Right.
Right. Well, what can we expect out there?
Well, it's crazy. I mean, the first time I went, I wasn't prepared for how intense it actually is. I think that's the thing, and you really have to do your homework. I mean, this is one of the only piece of advice I can give to anyone who's going to South by Southwest is listen to as much stuff as you can before you get there. In the same way that you go on holiday because you want to see some of the sites. You wouldn't go to a place thinking, I'll just go randomly to a country. So you read up on some of the sites you're going to see, aren't you? But that's exactly the same thing. The sites that you're going to see, the holiday destination sites, the tourist attractions are in this case the band. So it's the bands that you have to find out where they are and do as much homework as possible before you get there, because once you set out and step into 6th Street for the first time of an evening at about 7 o'clock, all you'll see is just bars and clubs putting on bands, and it's just overwhelming, even to somebody like myself. I mean, it's weird, as someone who's gone to gigs for, well, it's 30 years I've been going to gigs this year. I mean, I was like a kid in a sweet shop. Genuinely, I was so excited. And it doesn't matter which sort of sweets you want either. It's a complete quality street selection as you wander down the street. But that's why, if you want a certain flavour, do your homework before you get there.
What particular sweets have you singled out to go and sample this time?
Well, this is the interesting thing. There's one or two. I've just been going through the big list, and there's 1,500 bands this year.
Yeah.
I've got to about C in the alphabetical list so far of going through some of the bands who are playing. I think the interesting ones this year, though, I think one really interesting thing is, and it's more of an underground thing than an overground big major label type deal, I think, to a certain extent. But the interesting thing, and there's a lot of bands from all over the world who are playing what I suppose we would call in this country sort of post-new rave music, so Klaxons-esque or electronic music is coming in and will be be represented in Austin by bands from Japan, from Canada, from France, from the UK, and I think there's this sort of new electro underground, which is one of the few things which is actually sort of linking music globally at the moment. So I think some of those bands, and there is one gig of Japanese bands doing effectively Nintendo tunes. I mean, it's just computer game music is what they call it virtually, and it's going to be blip, blip, blip very fast, and that is one gig which I really want to see.
We've definitely got to go and see that.
I think we should.
What about the actual journey there? I mean, it's how long from London to...
I mean, I think one of the things about South by Southwest, in the same way that every year after Glastonbury Festival happens, some bright spark will say, well, if the weather's going to be that bad every year, why don't they move it? Well, this is always the problem with getting to Austin, is that I guarantee out of our BBC party or people in the music industry that I know, one person will get stranded in New York because there'll be a cold snap there, and if you go to New York and then go on to South by Southwest, you'll be stuck in New York. Well, at least one of us will miss a connecting flight, which never existed in the first place because it'd been grounded in a storm. And the rest of us will sort of bounce our way down the last. We've been marooned. I've had luggage lost. Last year we got as far as Dallas and then had to hire a bus to get us there. It's it's something that like the Keystone Cops. I don't know. Or it'll be an interesting journey, I think, down there. There's nothing like actually arriving and setting foot outside of the airport in Austin and going, right, now I'm here.
What are we going to do with this new blog site?
The interesting thing this year is not just writing about some of the things that we've found, but it's actually more and more trying to put across actually what it looks like and actually what it feels like to be there. So I don't really know. I think we'll be on the hoof, really, trying to do as much as we can by actually standing in the road or standing in the audience or standing in places where you can sort of, I suppose, hopefully people will give you more of an idea of what it's actually like when you're there. Yourself?
Yeah, well, for me it's the fact that MySpace is there, which means that as soon as we see something that's good, we don't just write about it, but we put a link in what we're writing about it. Yeah. So people who read it can immediately click and hear right then.
Totally. And there's a lot of the bands have got at least one track up on the official southbysouthwest.com site as well. So there's all sorts of places, where you can actually go and listen to the bands that we're talking about, totally. I think all our job is to try and, give the colour to why. I mean, there's sometimes when you can listen to a demo and it sounds pretty good, but there are certain times where people see certain bands, or you see a certain band in a certain environment or in a certain setting, which makes the band even better. So yeah, you can listen to the music and we'll tell you why it was so important at that particular point in the history of rock and roll.
Brilliant.
Right.
So
Sod off then.
Go to Texas.